We're talking about maps that were drawn roughly between the 1300s and the 1700s.
Let's talk about the pyramids. They're massive, they're mysterious, they've been standing tall for 4,500 years. And
a map of America discovered in ancient Egypt? That's not a conspiracy theory. It's the claim shaking the foundations of history. Hidden beneath the sands of Saqqara, archaeologists may have uncovered something even more shocking than a pharaoh's tomb. A 5,000-year-old artifact that appears to show North and South America in incredible detail. If it's real, it changes everything. What was it doing in a pre-dynastic Egyptian burial site? Who made it? And more importantly, what were they trying to hide? The map that shouldn't exist. In early 2024, an archaeological team excavating near Saqqara, the ancient necropolis south of Cairo, uncovered something that would defy every expectation. What began as a search for early administrative structures ended with the opening of a sealed chamber beneath centuries of debris. Inside, surrounded by ceremonial objects and thick desert silence, stood a dark basalt slab, upright, massive, weathered, and utterly out of place. At first, the slab seemed simply decorative. Its surface was carved in geometric patterns, devoid of the typical gods or pharaohs usually found in tomb inscriptions. Archaeologists assumed it was a symbolic object, maybe even a celestial diagram. But something about the symmetry and layout of the engravings didn't sit right. This wasn't just abstract art. It looked like something with structure, almost like a map. That suspicion deepened when satellite imagery experts were brought in to overlay the stone's markings with modern topographic maps. What they found reportedly sent shockwaves through the excavation team. The lines etched into the slab, faint but deliberate, matched modern geographic features, not of Egypt, but of an entirely different continent. The shape of a hooked peninsula bore a near-perfect resemblance to Florida. Southward, a wide curve aligned precisely with the Yucatan Peninsula. To the west, a jagged vertical ridge mirrored the Andes mountain range, while a broad depression corresponded with the Amazon basin. Each feature matched real-world data with shocking accuracy. These weren't vague or generalized shapes. These were geographical contours that aligned with satellite data to within a margin of error unthinkable for a civilization 5 millennia old. Using advanced 3D scans, multispectral imaging, and surface reconstruction technology, researchers discovered even subtler details: elevation shifts, river systems, and ocean boundaries. The level of detail went beyond symbolism. This wasn't a stylized motif or an artistic rendering. This was cartography. Not only that, it was cartography more than 5,000 years ahead of its time. No known Egyptian records mention knowledge of lands beyond the Mediterranean. No accounts speak of seafaring journeys across vast oceans. And yet, here it was, a topographical depiction of two continents that shouldn't have existed in the minds of pre-dynastic Egyptians. To put this in context, this artifact predates Herodotus by over 2,500 years. It predates Ptolemy's maps, Columbus's voyage, and even Viking explorations by thousands of years. And yet, the shape of the American landmass was carved into stone in a sealed tomb before the first pyramid ever rose from the Giza Plateau. What's even more compelling is that the map wasn't placed in a prominent or celebratory location. It was buried deep within a tomb, facing inward, shielded behind pottery jars, as if someone had intentionally tried to hide it. Not destroy it, but obscure it. Why? If this map was a record of discovery, why wasn't it celebrated? Why didn't future generations build upon it, unless they weren't supposed to know? At this point, mainstream academics are still unwilling to comment officially. The Egypt Ministry of Antiquities has declined to release high-resolution images or allow outside scholars to examine the slab. But leaks from the dig team, anonymous but consistent, continue to paint the same picture. This is real, and it is something no one can yet explain. If true, it means the history of human exploration, maritime technology, and geographic knowledge is not just incomplete, it's broken. But when researchers examined the stone's physical composition, the real mystery began, because the map itself was made of rock that shouldn't even exist in Egypt, a stone from another world. At first glance, the slab's strange carvings were enough to rattle the assumptions of even the most seasoned archaeologists. But what really set alarms ringing wasn't what was etched onto the stone, it was the stone itself. This was no ordinary material. It wasn't the limestone or sandstone that dominates Egypt's ancient sites. It wasn't even local basalt. When samples were taken for petrographic analysis, the results upended everything. The slab was composed of andesitic basalt, a volcanic rock formed through intense geological processes deep beneath the Earth's crust. That was odd enough, but its exact mineral fingerprint revealed something far stranger. This particular basalt matched no Egyptian formation. It came from the high Andes of South America, specifically the mountainous volcanic belts near what is now modern-day Peru. Thousands of miles away, across an ocean, geologists confirmed the rock's unique crystalline composition, trace elements, and isotopes that could only form under specific conditions found in Andean geology. These details were not speculative. They were empirical, and they begged a question for which no one had a credible answer. How did this stone get from South America to Egypt over 5,000 years ago? There are no known trade routes between pre-Columbian South America and ancient Egypt. No ships capable of such a transatlantic journey. No records, no legends, no cultural breadcrumbs pointing to a link that would explain this impossible crossover. And yet, the stone exists. It was deliberately placed, sealed inside a tomb, in a site used as a necropolis during the rise of Egypt's earliest kingdoms. Some researchers have tried to dismiss it. Coincidence, a few have said. Contamination, others claimed. But when pressed, those arguments unravel. You can't contaminate a stone with a geographic origin, and there are no historical coincidences that deposit several tons of volcanic rock from Peru beneath Saqqara's sand dunes. That leaves us with only a handful of radical possibilities. Either someone in pre-dynastic Egypt had access to knowledge and maritime capabilities far beyond what historians believe, or we're looking at evidence of a forgotten transoceanic exchange, a lost contact between civilizations thought to have developed in total isolation. This isn't just speculation. The slab is real, its composition verified, its presence impossible by every accepted standard. If the basalt did come from Peru, someone had to quarry it, carve it, and transport it across the Atlantic Ocean. That's not a matter of accident or driftwood. That's a mission, a voyage, a deliberate act by people who knew exactly where they were going, which raises the deeper question, why? What was so important about this stone, about the map it held, that made it worth such an unfathomable journey? Was it a gift? A warning? A remnant of a lost global network that was buried before written history even began? And more chillingly, why was it hidden? Because this slab wasn't displayed with reverence. It wasn't positioned like the sacred stelae that usually accompany the tombs of nobility. Instead, it was hidden, turned inward, tucked behind storage jars, shielded from immediate discovery, almost like it was never meant to be seen again. Historians who've studied ancient Egyptian burial customs have pointed out that nothing is accidental. The placement of every object in a tomb carries symbolic meaning. This one screamed suppression, not celebration. What kind of knowledge did it carry that had to be buried, literally? Who made that decision? And what did they see that made them choose silence over revelation? Yet the mystery doesn't end with the stone. It was buried deliberately, and the tomb's contents suggest it wasn't just rare, it was forbidden. Secrets of the tomb. The tomb itself, the chamber where the mysterious slab was discovered, tells a story that archaeologists are only beginning to unravel. Based on carbon dating of organic material recovered from the site, the burial dates to the Naqada Third period, around 3100 before Common Era. This places it right at the tipping point of Egyptian civilization, before the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. and centuries before the pyramids of Giza were even imagined. This is not some late-stage curiosity from a decadent empire. This tomb comes from the dawn of Egypt's dynastic rise, and the objects buried inside it suggest that the person laid to rest here held enormous status and unusual access that may have extended far beyond the Nile Valley. Alongside the map slab, researchers found high-quality black-topped pottery, ceremonial flint blades with ornamental carvings, and mineral palettes used for grinding pigments, items typically reserved for the elite. But it was the map's placement that sent chills through the excavation team. It wasn't mounted like a stela or proudly positioned for afterlife reverence. It was tucked behind a stack of storage jars, its face turned inward as though someone had gone out of their way to ensure it stayed hidden. Not destroyed, but hidden. In ancient Egyptian tombs, nothing is accidental. Orientation, material, and proximity all carried spiritual meaning. Sacred texts were usually painted or carved with great care, prominently displayed to guide the deceased into the afterlife. But this artifact, it was concealed, almost like an embarrassing secret buried with the dead to keep it from the living. Even the inscriptions on the slab defied tradition. Where most tomb walls were covered in spells from the pyramid texts or images of deities, this slab bore no names, no gods, no pharaohs. Instead, it featured celestial symbols, stars, waves, and what appeared to be twin spirals, aligned along opposite coasts of a central body. At first, they were assumed to be stylized artistic forms, but multispectral imaging revealed something far more chilling. Etched into the stone, in faint early script, possibly proto-hieroglyphic, was a single cryptic phrase. "We saw the twin lands. The sun never sets, but shadows walk there." The implications of this sentence are staggering. Twin lands may refer to the two continents depicted in the slab's carvings, North and South America. But the phrase's tone is not one of celebration or discovery. It's ominous. The sun never sets suggests a land of perpetual light or overwhelming brightness, perhaps metaphorically implying abundance or enlightenment. But then comes the chilling warning: shadows walk there. This evokes the image of a place filled with unknown forces, possibly dangerous, misunderstood, or forbidden. In mythological terms, it reads almost like a warning to future generations that what lies across the ocean is not just distant, but dark, perhaps even cursed. And so, the message was buried. Not destroyed, not erased, but intentionally sealed away beneath centuries of sand and silence. Whoever carved that slab believed the information was too important to lose entirely, but too dangerous to be widely known. It's as if they wanted someone, someday, to find it. But not just anyone. Someone ready. Some have speculated that this wasn't just a burial. It was a containment of a truth that could unravel everything the ancient world believed. A knowledge so disruptive, it had to be hidden in death, not preserved in life. And that raises the ultimate question. If these twin lands referred to the Americas, why would the message be hidden? What kind of truth were they afraid of? The cocaine mummies revisited. Not all secrets are carved in stone. Some are preserved in flesh. In the 1990s, a forensic toxicologist named Dr. Svetlana Balabanova made a discovery so shocking, so incompatible with accepted history, that it was almost immediately dismissed by the academic world. But decades later, her findings are being re-evaluated, and the implications point in the same direction as the mysterious map in Saqqara. Dr. Balabanova was studying ancient Egyptian mummies, not for historical revisionism, but as part of a routine toxicological analysis. Her aim was to understand medicinal and ritual substance use in antiquity. But what she found was completely unexpected. Traces of nicotine and cocaine embedded in the hair and soft tissues of multiple mummies. This was a problem, a very big one, because both nicotine and cocaine are derived from plants that, according to conventional history, existed only in the Americas until after Columbus's voyage in 1492. In theory, There was no way these substances should have been present in Egyptian remains from over 3,000 years ago. The backlash was swift. Critics claimed laboratory contamination. Others suggested modern interference. Some dismissed the results as statistical noise or even outright error. But here's the thing. Dr. Balabanova ran the tests multiple times. The results were consistent, and she wasn't the only one. Over the following years, other scientists independently repeated the tests on other mummies. The findings held. Eventually, modern labs using gas chromatography and mass spectrometry confirmed the presence of these alkaloids in concentrations too high to be accidental. Contamination could no longer explain it. The data was real. So what does it mean? If Egyptian mummies from thousands of years ago contain residues of New World plants, we're left with only two possible explanations. Either these plants somehow existed in Africa and went extinct without a trace, or there was some form of contact between the Old World and the Americas long before European explorers ever set sail. The implications are profound. This isn't mythology or metaphor. It's hard science. If even a fraction of these findings are accurate, they force us to reconsider what we know about early human migration, trade, and communication. It suggests that ancient Egyptians, or someone they interacted with, reached the Americas, or that the Americas reached them. Mainstream historians have been reluctant to accept this possibility, largely because it breaks the model that has governed our understanding of history for centuries. The prevailing belief has been that ancient civilizations were isolated, evolving in cultural silos until relatively modern seafaring made long-distance contact possible. But the mummies say otherwise. And now, combined with the map found in Saqqara, the connection becomes even harder to ignore. We're not just seeing isolated data points, we're seeing a pattern. A map carved in stone, a stone that comes from South America. And now, chemical fingerprints of American plants sealed inside the bodies of Egyptian nobles. The conclusion is staggering, but increasingly unavoidable. Some kind of transatlantic contact did occur in the ancient world. Not in myth or in imagination, but in physical, documented, biological reality. And this leads us to a chilling possibility. What if Egypt didn't just visit the Americas once? What if it made contact, gathered knowledge, and even tried to remember? Not through storytelling, but through monuments, symbols, and sacred codes hidden in plain sight. But what if Egypt didn't just visit the Americas? What if it remembered them and left a warning encoded in sacred sites across the Nile? Clues from the forgotten city. Long before the pyramids towered over Giza, before hieroglyphs adorned temple walls, and even before Egypt's first pharaohs united the land, there was Nehen, also known by its Greek name, Hierakonpolis. Located along the Nile's western bank, this ancient city was one of the earliest urban centers in Egyptian history. And for years, it was thought to be just that, a local power, a stepping stone on the path towards state formation. But what if Nekhen was more than just an ancient city? What if it held the key to a forgotten story? One with implications that stretched far beyond the borders of Egypt. Recent excavations have unearthed murals and artifacts that don't fit the standard narrative. Among them are striking wall paintings that, at first glance, seem to depict familiar themes: boats, animals, celestial symbols. But a closer look reveals something deeply unusual. The boats are massive, stylized for long-distance travel, not Nile-bound barges. They are navigating what appears to be vast open water, painted with wide waves and unfamiliar sea creatures. This isn't the Nile. It's something far more ambitious. Even more bizarre are the animals. Some resemble species never native to Africa, creatures that look suspiciously like South American fauna. Scholars long dismissed these as artistic invention or mythical hybrids. But with the recent Sakara discovery and renewed interest in possible pre-Columbian contact, the murals are drawing fresh scrutiny. One mural, long overlooked and partially destroyed, was recently subjected to digital reconstruction and multispectral imaging. When the image was enhanced, the outlines revealed something astonishing. Two large landmasses surrounded by curling waves, arranged with uncanny similarity to the continents of North and South America. The proportions are stylized, but the shapes are striking. One even resembles the tapering form of South America, with a western spine suggestive of the Andes. Initially thought to be symbolic of the two lands of Upper and Lower Egypt, this theory begins to unravel under the weight of such detail. The twin continents shown in the mural aren't divided by the Nile. They're separated by a vast body of water. This is not traditional Egyptian iconography. It's something else entirely. Could this mural be more than metaphor? Could it be a preserved cultural memory, a pictorial account of a journey recorded in the only way ancient Egyptians knew how? If so, it begs another question. Who went? And why didn't they tell the world? One theory gaining traction among fringe and independent researchers is that the voyage, if it occurred, was not a tale of triumph. Instead, it may have been a disaster, a harrowing expedition that returned with disturbing knowledge, something so unsettling that it was purposely buried in myth, art, and coded warnings. Not all memories are meant to be passed down. Some are hidden in plain sight, shrouded in metaphor, waiting for a time when someone could finally understand them. This idea aligns with the cryptic message found on the Saqqara slab. We saw the twin lands. The sun never sets, but shadows walk there. That phrase, paired with the mural's eerily familiar continents, paints a picture of ancient contact that wasn't just accidental, it was transformative and maybe traumatic. The city of Nekhen was once thought to be a purely regional site. But what if it was something else? A knowledge hub, a cultural archive, preserving memories of voyages that defied their time. In ancient Egypt, cities often carried symbolic weight. Nekhen may have served as a gateway, not just to power, but to memory. Still not convinced? Let's talk pyramids. Because the architectural overlaps between Egypt and Mesoamerica might be more than coincidence. Pyramid parallels and shared stars. For decades, scholars have noticed the eerie similarities between the pyramids of ancient Egypt and those built by Mesoamerican civilizations like the Maya, Aztecs, and Olmec. Mainstream archaeology has long insisted these resemblances are nothing more than coincidence, independent solutions to similar architectural challenges. But the deeper you look, the harder that explanation becomes to accept. Because this isn't just about shape, it's about cosmology. Both Egyptian and Mesoamerican pyramids were not only monumental, they were aligned with the stars. The Great Pyramid of Giza was engineered with staggering precision. Its sides oriented almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, and its layout aligned with Orion's belt, which was associated with Osiris, the god of death and resurrection. In Mesoamerica, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent at Teotihuacan and many Maya pyramids also show astronomical alignments, again, especially with Orion and Sirius, stars with deep symbolic meaning tied to rebirth, transformation, and the afterlife. This isn't casual stargazing. These are entire civilizations architecting their sacred centers around the same celestial objects, thousands of miles apart, and supposedly without any contact. And that's not all. These civilizations also shared remarkably similar systems in religion, timekeeping, and writing. Both Egyptians and Mesoamericans developed solar calendars, 365-day cycles tied to agricultural renewal, and the helical rising of Sirius. In Egypt, Sirius's rising marked the annual flooding of the Nile, essential to life and fertility. In Mesoamerica, calendar systems like the Hab and Sokin governed planting seasons, ritual events, and cosmic rhythms. In both regions, we find complex pantheons of gods, deities of the sun, moon, death, fertility, and the underworld. Egyptian deities like Osiris, Anubis, and Isis governed transitions between life and death, much like Quetzalcoatl, Xibalba lords, and other underworld figures in Mesoamerican mythology. These were not superficial similarities, These were shared narrative structures, myths that explained the cosmos and humanity's role within it. Even their writing systems reflected parallel sophistication. Egyptian hieroglyphs and Maya glyphs both used a hybrid of phonetic symbols and ideograms, allowing them to represent sounds, ideas, and complex religious concepts within a single script. Both were carved into stone, painted onto walls, and used to document kings, rituals, and astronomical events. So, the question must be asked, is this convergent evolution or connected knowledge? Could there have been a shared origin point for these cosmological systems? Or even more boldly, was there a network of communication that once connected the old world and new, passing sacred knowledge across vast oceans long before modern exploration? Most historians reject that idea, citing the lack of physical evidence for transoceanic contact. But with the Saqqara map, the Peruvian basalt, the cocaine mummies, and the murals from Nekhen, that lack of evidence is quickly eroding. In fact, what we may be seeing now is not just a series of coincidences, but the fragments of a forgotten world, a web of knowledge exchanged across distances we once thought impossible. Still, there's one aspect that continues to baffle researchers. Why would ancient Egyptians bury this connection? If they shared sacred architecture, religious structures, and astronomical systems with another civilization, why hide it? Why carve a map only to bury it beneath jars in a sealed tomb? Why encode warnings in cryptic scripts instead of celebrating their achievements openly? One theory is that what they found across the ocean wasn't something to be shared, but something to be feared. The stars may have connected them, but perhaps what they encountered in those twin lands challenged their understanding of life, death, or even reality itself. If so, the knowledge wasn't erased out of ignorance, but suppressed for protection. And perhaps that's the most unsettling revelation of all. Not just that ancient civilizations were connected, but that they chose to sever those connections. The alignment of pyramids, the mirrored myths, the celestial maps carved in stone. They may not be relics of pride, but remnants of warning, a memory carried through architecture and ritual, then buried beneath layers of symbolism. The ancients may have left us the blueprint, but not the full story, because what they glimpsed under those same stars might have been a truth too dangerous to pass on. Some truths aren't lost. They are buried on purpose. And one final artifact may confirm that the Egyptians didn't just explore those lands. They returned and sealed their memories in stone. The obelisk that confirms it all. Sometimes, the most explosive revelations hide in the places we've looked at for centuries, just never quite understood. In the heart of Luxor, where temples honor gods and kings, where tourists walk paths worn by millennia, an ancient obelisk stood silent for generations. Covered in familiar hieroglyphs, it was assumed to be ceremonial, just another monument to Egypt's divine rulers. But a recent re-examination changed everything. Using modern imaging techniques, researchers revisited this overlooked pillar with new eyes, layering spectral scans and linguistic analysis onto its eroded surface. What they found were not the usual praises of Ra or invocations of Osiris. Instead, the obelisk told a story, a cryptic, haunting one. The first shocking phrase etched into the stone, a vessel of the West. In Egyptian cosmology, the West wasn't just a direction. It symbolized death, mystery, and the unknown, the land where the sun dies, where souls journey after life. But this wasn't metaphor. The next phrase made that clear. Dark presence in the windless sea. A description that conjures something more than symbolic underworlds. It hints at real oceanic travel, a voyage across still, suffocating waters where something unsettling was encountered. Not treasure, not triumph, but something they didn't understand. And then, the final line, the one that reportedly left even seasoned archaeologists speechless. A land of gold, death, and silence, not a paradise. Not a promised land, but a place that offered riches and consequences. The silence here is more than physical. It's cultural, a memory cut off, a truth buried. This obelisk, when paired with the Saqqara map, the South American stone, the cocaine mummies, and the oceanic murals at Nekhen forms the final piece of an astonishing puzzle. Because it confirms what those artifacts only suggested, Egypt didn't just know about the Americas. It went there, and it came back different. This was not a triumphant return chronicled for the ages. There are no pharaonic proclamations, no temple carvings celebrating far-off conquests. Instead, there is absence, deliberate and chilling, a silence that permeates every clue we've uncovered. This silence wasn't from ignorance. It was intentional. The obelisk doesn't just tell us that Egypt sailed west. It tells us why they stopped talking about it. Something happened out there. Something so disturbing, so destabilizing, that it couldn't be integrated into their worldview. It had to be sealed away, in stone, in tombs, in myths disguised as metaphors. That map at Saqqara, it wasn't lost. It was hidden. The slab wasn't placed in honor. It was tucked behind jars, face turned away, buried in a chamber where no one would casually find it. And now, this obelisk offers the missing context. Fear, not curiosity, not conquest. Fear. That's why, even now, the silence continues. Experts who initially leaked details about the Sakara discovery have stopped giving interviews. Scholars who were willing to speculate suddenly avoid the subject. The artifacts, if they exist, remain out of public view, and Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities has refused to comment, offering neither confirmation nor denial. Just nothing. Why? Perhaps because acknowledging this discovery would require rewriting the entire story of human civilization. Our timelines, our assumptions about isolated development, our belief that exploration began in the Age of Sail. If this map is real, if these voyages really happened, our history collapses, because it means the ancients knew more than we ever imagined, that they were navigating oceans thousands of years before the compass, that civilizations we've long thought isolated were, in truth, connected by memory, by myth, by fear. And maybe the most haunting part of all, they left us proof. We just weren't supposed to find it. And now that the proof is surfacing, carved in basalt, etched in forgotten obelisks, whispered through forbidden chemicals in mummified flesh, we're faced with a choice. We can dismiss it, bury it again beneath layers of skepticism and silence. Or we can confront what it truly means, that our ancestors were not just builders of monuments, but keepers of secrets. Secrets so profound, they reshaped the stories we were allowed to remember. The question isn't whether they made the journey, it's whether we're ready to face what they found. If ancient Egyptians crossed the Atlantic, if they mapped continents 5,000 years ago, if they buried the truth to protect future generations, what else have we forgotten? Like, comment, and subscribe for more mind-blowing discoveries. And don't miss the next video on your screen. It dives deeper into ancient secrets that may have been deliberately hidden from history.